Welcome, everyone, to Double Take, a football podcast, streaming everywhere you get podcasts and also on YouTube. I'm your host, David, in-house with Daniel, and back for the first time in a long time, our man, Steven Savage. How are you, boys?
Dude, I'm good to be back, man. Super excited. Happy to be here back with the boys, getting ready, series finale.
Here comes the camera movement again. He's moving him as he makes his takes. Yeah, so this is our 46th and final episode of Double Take a Football podcast before we move over to Double Take a Sports podcast. Today, we are covering the first week of the NFL preseason. We're discussing, performances of specific players. We're introducing a new segment of Figure It Out, making its debut. And then we're also giving our predictions for the NFC East and West divisions. But before that, like we already said, it's the return of Savage. He's been gone, a new father, which is fantastic. And he has a series of takes that have been building and growing. And so, Savage, I'm going to let you have the floor.
I'm going to mute myself.
Do you want us to comment in between, or do you want to go straight through it and then we give our
let him cook? Let him cook.
Well, let me just. I have 5 takes. I have 5 takes that I've just been needing a platform and a microphone to say. First take: the Cowboys offseason. Never once in my life have I been less excited for an NFL season for the Cowboys than this season. Right now, I feel the same, as if it's like, that feeling when your yard starts getting a little bit too high and it's time to mow, and there's just this existential dread of, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. I have to endure this season, and I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can get myself 16 to 17 times this year to sit down in front of a TV for 3 hours and watch this Dallas Cowboys team. It's not that I think we're going to be bad. It's just we are directionless. We have nowhere we are going. We can't pay anybody on this team. People are arguing about the order in which you have to pay them. To me, it's quite obvious the order that we should pay. We should pay CD first. We should pay Micah second. We should pay Dak third. In my opinion, I believe that right now, if you don't keep CD, then there's no reason to keep Dak, And then on defensively, he's young. I know Daniel has his takes about him, but he's still good. He's still productive. He just needs to figure out the second half of the season thing. And I think a lot of that can be fixed by coaching. If he gets somebody who's going to be more hard on him than Dan Quinn, maybe that'll help. I don't know. Regardless, we've done nothing. It's just we've been sitting stagnant, like a shark that doesn't move forward. It's a shark that's dead. That's how I feel about our playoff chances. I think are becoming dead. That's how I think about us. It's boring. I'm just not looking forward to this season at all. Maybe y'all can help change my mind, but if I had to guess, I think you won't. Second take: I've not been able to talk with y'all about this Dallas Mavericks finals run. Oh my goodness, straight electric. The sports bets over under for win totals for next year has the Mavs at 50.5 wins. Here's the deal. We had 50 wins last year, and that was the complete overhaul of our roster at the trade deadline to where we got better. Of our 8 players that are going to be the majority of our minutes taken, most of those were on the team last year, and those who are new additions or upgrades from our previous players. We're going to be a top 3 seed in the West, probably the 2 seed in the West. We're going to go back to the finals this year. Luka made that finals run without having any health in his body whatsoever. And adding Klay Thompson, adding Spencer Dinwiddie, adding Quentin Grimes, bringing in these people, that is going to help Luka be more healthier come the playoff run. I don't think we had the best offseason. I think the Thunder had the best offseason, but I think we got better enough to where we're still a better team than them come 7 games. Great run, Mavs. They are at the beginning of last NBA season. I made the official move to relegate the Cowboys down a spot and move the Mavericks up to the 1 seed for the fandom in my heart. Great decision, Self. Good job. Let's go, Mavs. Excited about the future. If anything, it's the exact opposite of the Cowboys. We had a great year, and I can't wait for this upcoming year. The Cowboys had a year that was good until it was awful, and then just had an even more terrible offseason. So just tough, hard to deal with. Third take, my thoughts on the Olympics. So many thoughts about the Olympics right now. So many. ideas, changes that I would bring in. First of all, let's start with Noah Lyles. I do not want to hear anything from that man moving forward to the next 4 years. He got lucky in his 100 meter, and then he came out of the gate for his 200, sprinting up and down, jumping up and down, got third, and then wants to talk about I have 102-degree fever. Well, you were doing just fine running your mouth. You were doing just fine running whenever it was your introduction time. And now you're making fun of Anthony Edwards because he invited you to his shoe deal and you're just jealous that you don't have a shoe. And you're saying world champions of what? That goes to you. Meanwhile, Team USA, what do you know? Another gold medal. So there you go. Talking about the NBA champions aren't the best team in the world, as if all the world's best players don't come to the NBA. It's ridiculous. It was ignorant. He got what he deserved. Team USA barely got the gold, right? We barely won. We tied with China for golds, won on overall medal count. And a lot of that comes down to our high jumper. I forgot what his name is, but he had a chance to take a tie for gold, and he chose, no, let's go to a jump off. Ended up getting the silver, and we tie with China for golds. We could have had an upright win for the Olympics, but no, we don't want to take you don't go to the Olympics to win, by the way. You go to the Olympics to get the gold. And those sound like the exact same, but in this case, it wasn't the same. In this case, a tie for first was on the table, and you didn't take it because you wanted sole possession. I get it, but if you do that, you have to win. And you were going against a guy who was known as like the world's best at this, and you were not expected to be there at the end. So why didn't you just take the tie for gold? I don't know. Sports that we need to eliminate from the Olympics outside of breakdancing. That was just an embarrassment. That was not cool. That was the worst thing I've ever seen. The Australian woman, that ray gun, she's done better because she turned into a meme than anyone else. And none of the first place, I don't even know who got first place, but I know Ray Gun doing her little kangaroo dance and snake routine. That was ridiculous. But here's some other sports that need to go away from the gymnastics. Starting off with dressage. Y'all ever watch dressage? It's an equestrian event where basically a horse dances on the dirt. And they have a skill that is called extended walk. I'm not even joking about this. Extended walk. That the horse did a good job walking and stopping where he told it to. How is that a sport? Get it out of here. That needs to go immediately. Second sport that needs to get removed. Rhythmic gymnastics. They have another word for that. It's called color guard. Okay, I had it in high school. We had a great one in our high school. I don't think that the color guard is bad. I just don't think it's an Olympic sport. Thirdly, something else that needs to get removed. Ping pong, or they call it table tennis. There is no way that you have the fastest person in the world, you have the strongest person in the world, the greatest swimmer in the world, and a guy who can handle a paddle, and you give them the same amount of wins. That's ridiculous. They need to either have a smaller gold medal for the ping pong players or just get it out of the sport completely. Another thing that needs to get removed. The rhythmic swimming or the swim aerobics. Listen, I know that takes so much athleticism to be able to do. I get it. It's just not a sport. It's just not a sport. I am sorry. It is an artistic expression, sure, but it's not a sport. So that needs to go as well. They're bringing in baseball. That's awesome. They're bringing in flag football. That's stupid. Because what are we talking about? Flag football. What are we, 8th graders? No, get flag football out of the Olympics, bring in real football, and then USA can especially dominate in that. So my thoughts on the Olympics as a whole, it was awesome. I enjoyed watching it. I become like a huge water polo fan or something like that. And then as soon as the Olympics end, I don't care about it for another 4 years. But when it comes back, I am locked in on that. It's cool. It's soccer, it's swimming, it's basketball all in one. I love it. Next thing I want to talk about, the NFL Top 100. A lot of major sports shows, including my favorite one, First Things First, has made a big stink about Tyreek Hill being the #1 player over Mahomes. It is ridiculous to me that we're bragging on Tyreek Hill when the real most atrocious player over Mahomes is Lamar. As if Mahomes is not clearly the best quarterback in the league. At least other positions you can argue, well, they're the best in their position. Lamar's not the best in his position. Yes, he should have been the MVP. Yes, I stand by my take that he saved the historical accuracy of the league by winning the MVP over Brock Purdy. But no, he is not better than Patrick Mahomes. That is ridiculous. The list was wild. Why was Deron Bland even on that list? I get he got a lot of interceptions, but to make a case that he's one of the top 100 players in the NFL is ridiculous. He is not a top 100 player. I feel like this is one of the few times that I feel like the fans from his own team rate him lower than the league as a whole. I don't know if any real Cowboys fans would say, Deron Bland is a top 5 player on our own team. I certainly don't think that. There's no way he can be. So the NFL Top 100 list was a little weird. It felt a little, let's just try to give it to someone else besides Mahomes, a little like NBA MVP voter fatigue situation. Not sure. But then my final take that I'm going to give in this segment, which is the Billy Goat LeBron James once again displayed why he is Captain America, why he is the biggest icon in American sports ever, and why he is the GOAT of basketball at whole. Did you see that picture of him when he was the flag bearer and they were on the river? He looked like George Washington crossing the Potomac River. I mean, what an iconic picture of him leading our country to the Olympics. First basketball player ever to do that. Was basketball around when Jordan played? I wonder why he never got to bear the flag. Let's talk about how people say he shouldn't have been the MVP, as if he wasn't second in points, first in rebounds, first in assists, first in player efficiency, led the team every time out. Who were the players looking at? It wasn't KD. It wasn't Steph. It was LeBron. Most of those threes that Steph Curry hit, who was assisting those? Who was setting it up? It was LeBron James. He is the GOAT. He is 40. He has a gray beard, and he should never use Just for Men, because I want his beard to get completely gray so that when we look back at highlights in 20 years from now, we say, oh my gosh, you see how gray that beard was? And he was still better than everybody else. So LeBron's the GOAT. The GOAT debate is over. Everyone wants to count rings. Oh, let's count medals, okay? Because now LeBron has more medals than Jordan does in the Olympics. And I don't think that should really care, but I don't think the GOAT debate's only a rings debate anyways. So LeBron's the GOAT. Lamar shouldn't have been over. Dressage needs to go away somewhere far. Mavs are awesome, and the Cowboys stink. What do y'all guys got?
Oh,
we lost Savage.
I guess we lost him.
Yeah.
All right, he's back.
He's back.
All right. I was about to say, I was just like, wow, he just cooked for about
and he just left
8 minutes and then he just left. But I don't disagree with a lot of pretty much anything you said. I think the top 100 is very, very fair. I'm thinking that it is a players list, so there's a lot of bias that goes into it, I think, a lot. So I think they probably have Mahomes fatigue. But also they also made the list, I think, before even the postseason even started.
Yeah, I think it was like Thanksgiving-ish. That's the time frame. And so that was a time where Mahomes wasn't really playing that well. And so I think
that's probably why he was four.
Well, the thing about it, it's still stupid.
Yeah.
They would choose that time to make a list instead of, hey, let's maybe wait till the season's over, and then as soon as the season's over, let's make the list. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was just dumb in itself. But
and I think, that could also carry a conversation into how should the MVP work? Is it only a regular season award, or should we start including the postseason? Because if that's the case, Mahomes would have won the MVP this year as well, but it's currently just a regular season award. I'm with you on DaRon Bland. He's definitely not a top 100 player, and you're right, he's not a top 5 player on our football team. I just think people saw all his interceptions.
It's just a historic
NFL record for pick sixes in a season. So I think they just felt like he deserved the nod for that. And also, in terms of Lamar being ahead of Patrick Mahomes, even though he had a better regular season, and I'm guessing that's just what the top 100 list is just like in the regular season, who was among the best players. I guess he would have to be over Patrick Mahomes. I don't think that anybody, though, on their like overall rankings has Lamar even close to Patrick Mahomes.
But I even disagree with that, because you have to look at what was Lamar given versus what was Mahomes given. Mahomes was given a bunch of mid, and still was one of the top seeds in the conference.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like I totally would take into account roster construction, degree of difficulty. That's the criteria we set for our top 10 lists. I think that the players should have that, but I'm going to probably say this, and this is a hot take. Not a lot of football players, they can play the game and they know the X's and O's, but I don't know if they know ball. They really don't know how to analyze the game from this side of it. They have a lot of crazy wild takes that we sometimes hear and we see. And I think this list shows the majority of them are probably not going to work in sports media after their careers are over. just because of the list that they put out. But yeah, I'm with you when it comes to the Cowboys offseason. Daniel and I, we've talked about it in detail and at length on the show. And the Mavericks, I'm with you. I'm more excited about what they're going to do because, like you said, I don't even have the numbers in front of me. But look at the record post that major trade that they made to haul and the complete overhaul of this team, what their record was. I mean, I think they were still had like single digit losses and like
they had a big win streak on the front end, and then they had a 7-game loss streak. And after that loss streak is whenever they picked it up and they went ballistic to the end of the year.
I mean, that was the narrative heading into the postseason was like, hey, look how well they played after the trade deadline. That was the huge story right after that. And so I agree with you. I think starting the season from that point, and then also them knowing, hey, guys, everyone's coming back next year. And also on top of that, we picked up some really key players, really things that we at the end of the year decided this is what we need to focus on to actually get better and make a bigger run next year. And they went and got those guys immediately.
Yeah.
So it was a great offseason for them.
Yeah. And obviously I live in Oklahoma. And so all their fans are coming up to me and being like, hey, we got better. We look good. And I said, yeah, I mean, it'll be a little bit tougher, but we also got better and we beat you on 6 games. And Luka wasn't really even healthy all the way there.
And the biggest thing for me that's going to make a difference is if you just went off of the teams with trade deadline moves, then I would say that the Thunder have taken over the Mavs. But I'm expecting Derek Lively to have a huge leap going into year 2.
Absolutely. Yes.
Expect
Yeah. So I'm with you, man. Love the takes. I'm glad that you finally got all of that out because whenever we said, hey, are we recording today or tomorrow? I was just like, please. So now let's head into the debut of a new segment for Double Take a Sports podcast. It's our own man, Steven Savage's Figure It Out. So, Savage, do you want to explain what this segment's going to be and then also give you your players or coaches that need to figure it out?
Yeah, absolutely. This is essentially my victory lap of a segment. I mean, this is basically when the show figured it out that 2/3 of the show, which I'm not going to say who, but 2/3 of the show thought that my figure it out take was ridiculous. Naturally, I didn't think it was ridiculous because I was the one who was married to it all year. So audience at home, you know who I'm talking about here. But I was told it was ridiculous. I was told that football is way more complex than that. It can't just be up to one person to figure it out. The quarterback shouldn't bear the figure it out segment is about this first one is what player and what coach needs to figure it out this season. Like no more excuses. I'm not interested in, the this and the that. No. You figure it out. We pay you millions and millions and millions of dollars. Get the job done. And then every week we will have the what player after the games, what player figured it out this last week and what player did not figure it out this last week. And from what I understand, that'll be whenever y'all two try to eviscerate my players who did and did not figure it out for that week. But right now, all three of us are going to give our player and our coach who needs to have a good year. They need to figure this thing out. No more excuses. No more nothing. No, it's your job. You figure it out. So I'm going to start with the player who by far needs to figure it out the most. There cannot be no more excuses for this guy. There cannot be no more, maybe look at his team. None of that. He needs to get the job done. And that's Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was given $250 million guaranteed. And we had arguments last year if Joe Flacco was a top 10 quarterback. Are you kidding me? Outside of him getting injured for the majority of the year, if he just comes out there and looks like a bunch of mid, which is what he's looked like, that is just, and I know he had a lot of stuff in his personal life and things that happened to where people don't talk about him a lot. I'm just saying he got that money. He got that contract. The city of Cleveland's looking at him. The Browns management is looking at him. His teammates might be even questioning. They are handicapped in a lot of ways of what they can do because of how much money they're paying him. He needs to figure it out. It's not that there's not a track record that he can be a great quarterback. He has the ability to do it. He just needs to get it done. He needs to figure it out. There can't be any more excuses for this guy. So that's my player who needs to figure it out this season.
Yeah, Dan, do you want to go?
I got 2 players if I'm allowed that. First is a guy that I'm very, very hard on.
Oh, gosh.
It's Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons needs to figure it out. Every year that he's been in the NFL, he plays about 13 games. The last 4, including the playoffs, does not show up. The only playoff game he did show up was when everyone did against Tampa Bay. That's the only playoff game he's shown up for. And the excuses that everyone is saying is that coaching. Everyone's saying Dan Quinn has him playing linebacker. He just needs to rush the passer. Well, coming out of training camp, the scheme that Mike Zimmer is teaching Micah Parsons how to be a complete linebacker. He is not going to be just a pass rusher. So we can stop with, if only he would rush. He's going to have to play in this system.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to have to figure it out. He needs to finish from week 1 through week 17 and give me complete games. Got to do it. Got to do it. You've been hailed as the next Charles Haley, the next Lawrence Taylor. You've been all this, and no one wants to put any blame on Micah Parsons. So now, and you're also trying to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the National Football League. With a new coach, you're supposed to be the guy, and you've yet to complete a full season where you're dominant. You better win Defensive Player of the Year. There's no excuses right now. You better win Defensive Player of the Year. Secondly, Caleb Williams, for me, has got to figure it out. Everyone's been talking about this guy as the next coming of the Messiah, the next Patrick Mahomes. And Savage, you gave a shout out to our favorite show, First Things First, so I'm going to do the same thing. No quarterback in NFL history drafted number 1 overall has been placed in a better situation than Caleb Williams. And I don't want to hear any excuses about the head coach. None. Because up until this point, I have not heard a whisper about the incapabilities of the head coach. No one's worried about it. Nick Wright has them in the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. So those are the expectations. You have to figure it out. You're the next Patrick Mahomes. Those are my 2 guys for figure it out.
Great picks.
Yeah, that's good. I also have 2 guys as well.
Oh, then I'm going to give a second too then. After
Yeah. So my first player is Tua. You just got the bag. You just got a big contract. You play well in the regular season until it's time for the big games. And we could chalk it up to coaching. We could chalk it up to even that defense not playing well. But Tua hasn't even looked comfortable in the big games, in the big spotlight moments, in the postseason. I know this was his first time, and people are losing their fingers in Kansas City. But in every single big game that they've had so far this year, apart from the Dallas game, and we already know what happened in that game, Tua has not played well in any games in any stretch of the imagination. And you have a stacked team. You're stacked offensively. You have one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and that running game is phenomenal. And you have Mike McDaniels as your head coach. You have everything you need, and now you're being paid over $50 million a season. It's time for you to show us that you are a franchise guy with a playoff win. You have to win the playoffs, and especially with how we're talking about Buffalo this season and how depleted they are offensively and what they've lost on the defensive side, you should win the division this season. There's no, barring from injuries, there's no reason why you can't win the division this year with how bad that we're looking at Buffalo and how good we're looking at Miami with some of the additions that they've had on the defensive side of the ball. And so you have to at least play well in these big moments and these big games. If your defense is the reason why you lose, fine. But you can't be part of the equation and be like, but you didn't play well at all. And I know Tyreek has had his moments also where he's fallen short, but you cannot be the reason why this team doesn't make it, win the division, or even win a playoff game this upcoming season. So Tua is on my figure it out list. Number 2, I have Joe Burrow. The reason why I have Joe Burrow only is because of due to injury and how just the fact that this is the second time that we've done this now. And we've had him at number 2 on our quarterback list for the past 2 seasons. But now you have to actually do something this year. And I expect him to do it. I expect if he's healthy, I think that he's going to play very, very well. He's going to get them to the playoffs. He's going to fight for the division crown. And he's still the only guy who's beaten Mahomes when it matters most. And so for Joe Burrow, it's just show us. We know what you are. We know what you can do, but you have to stay healthy this year if you want to keep your spot as the second best quarterback in the NFL. If you don't, we can't keep putting you there and say the words, well, if he was healthy. You have to be healthy this year. Do whatever that you have to do. Joe Burrow, figure it out. I believe that he will, but he's going to be my second player on this list.
That's good. I had Tua down as someone else to talk about as well. I have another quarterback, but I feel like quarterbacks are easy pickings. So I'm going to go for a wide receiver.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to go for Hollywood Brown.
Good.
So
love it.
Hollywood Brown he did a good job in Baltimore, right? And then he decided to go to Arizona, where he faded off into nobody really remembered him.
Correct.
Nobody was picking, the Cardinals in Madden because, I want to play with a speedster Hollywood Brown. And he goes into a situation in Kansas City where they've won 2 straight rings. They're looking to win their 3rd straight ring. As a Travis Kelce owner in fantasy football last year, I can tell you his production was way down. And the reason why was because there was no real threat on the offensive end in terms of receivers outside of Rashee Rice towards the end of the year. But they were doubling and tripling Travis Kelce the entire time. The sole reason they bring in a Hollywood Brown is to have an over-the-top threat somewhat akin to Tyreek Hill, to be that speedster that Mahomes can just throw the ball 60 yards down the field, big touchdown, big chunk, explosive play. That's what they're looking at him to be. I think he needs to figure out how to get back to more Baltimore Hollywood. Because when he was in Baltimore, man, that dude was awesome. I mean, he was fun to watch. He was highlight. And as a wide receiver who specifically not a super technical route runner, isn't what he's known for. He's not a big guy who's going to go up and get the ball. But just as a fast, just burner, you cannot ask to be in a better spot. You can't, there's not a better place for you to play in the NFL than with the Kansas City Chiefs. So for fantasy players this year and for the double take fantasy league, Hollywood Brown might be a player that if he's still sitting there in the 6th round, the 7th round or something like that, tremendous value there because he doesn't have a big name right now. But I think if he's sitting there, I'm going to take him because I'm expecting him to figure it out.
I would refrain from that. Latest report on Hollywood Brown's injury is he's going to be out to up to 6 weeks.
No.
Dang.
That was a big story coming out of the preseason weekend was the fact that he was injured.
Oh yeah, that's right. He wouldn't be
ready for the start of the season. Now the update as of yesterday was that he's going to be out up to 6 weeks.
Dang.
So I would probably choose someone else other than that. Just because that injury
pick up later, but then free
agent on the
maybe
bench.
like a mid-season pickup, but yeah.
Dang.
Anyway, but
well, then forget that last second player. Then having a newborn, you don't stay up to date with all of the preseason week 1.
I still think that he is somebody who needs to figure it out though, because I mean he was not great in Arizona.
No, he wasn't.
He was not. And now you're with Patrick Mahomes. We've been waiting for you to be this stud receiver coming out of Oklahoma and playing with Baker Mayfield and Lincoln Riley out of that system. and you were a stud there. And now you come into the NFL, and we really don't know what you are right now. And now you're with one of the greatest quarterbacks, the greatest quarterback of all time, with Andy Reid, and you have the opportunity to be the number one receiver with Travis Kelce taking some of the pressure off. I mean,
he needs to produce.
He needs to produce for sure.
Even if he's gone for 6 weeks, that's still you get the majority of the season.
Yeah.
Plus
you still got some time for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give my coach that I have on the figure it out. I have Kyle Shanahan. You need to figure it out. People always talk about how amazing of a head coach, a brilliant mind he is offensively, what he's done with the San Francisco football team. But like I've said before in past episodes of Double Take, let's look at his track record. You were the offensive coordinator in Atlanta when Matt Ryan had his MVP season. He goes into the Super Bowl against Tom Brady. You're up 28-3. You, as the offensive coordinator, blow that game, and you end up losing. Don't score a single point after being up 28-3. You go to San Francisco. We know what you did with Jimmy G and how great that you made him out to be. Played really good in your system, but you're up 20-10 in the Super Bowl. And your offensive play calling, it was so bad that it had to come down to one play for Jimmy G. Not absolving him from any blame because you make that throw as the quarterback. But you blow a 20-10 lead with the way that you're calling because you're still deciding, hey, I'm going to keep throwing the ball. Knowing the kind of quarterback you have. Then this past season, Brock Purdy, I thought, played a fairly good game with Christian McCaffrey running the rock in the first half. You build a lead, you're up, you're winning, even heading into the fourth quarter. And what do? You decide to throw the ball in the second half. And you blow another game. At some point in time, you have to be a coach that can get over the hump and to coach your team and call the right plays, especially because you want all the glory and all the attention. You have to call the plays in order to actually win a Super Bowl. Because I know San Francisco 49er fans, they'll say, oh, we're at least we're getting there. At least we're getting there. We're getting to the dance. They want to win one. Am I wrong? Don't you want to win a Super Bowl? Aren't you tired of getting there and losing and seeing the confetti for another team or Patrick Mahomes' confetti fall on you? Kyle Shanahan, you have the roster. You have the team. You're firing defensive coordinators. You're putting the blame on them. But it's time you actually took some accountability and finished out the game. We're talking about players not showing up when it matters most. I can't find Kyle Shanahan when the game matters the most. So Kyle Shanahan, get it done this year because I'm pretty sure 49ers fans don't want to see another season of them being in the Super Bowl and losing to Patrick Mahomes because you decided that you wanted to get cute and throw the football when you have a lead. Kyle Shanahan, figure it out.
A side note of that, what has to be especially hard for the Niners is hypothetically, if you're in the Super Bowl and you see red, yellow, and white confetti fall, you'd think you'd be happy. But for the other team.
Yeah. For me, David, I have the same. I have Kyle Shanahan as my figured out coach for a different reason than you. Obviously, we could talk about that, but the fact of the matter is they had a 3rd and 15 in overtime, and they let Patrick Mahomes run for 20 yards. I mean, that's pretty bad. And also in the first half, when they were running the rock, they were in the red zone. CMC fumbled. So maybe he saw that and said, maybe I need to take the ball out of hands. Stupid decision either way, but maybe that's the rationale he was going with. But the reason why I have him as my figured out coach is because I don't know what it is, but I'm very connected to 49ers Twitter for some reason. And so they're talking about the fact that maybe this team offensively won't be as talented as it has been in the past couple of years. Brandon Ayuk situation. They're still trying to figure out whether he's going to Pittsburgh or not. Ricky Parasol has 3 different injuries since training camp started, so we don't know what he's going to be. Deebo Samuel's always going to be an injury risk. CMC is looking at another soft tissue injury when his history has been with soft tissue injuries. And George Kittle isn't getting any younger. I still think he's going to be a fairly good player. But outside of him and Juwan Jennings, who else are you going to have? Well, guess what, Kyle? It is your fault because you had the opportunity to give Brandon Ayuk a contract that, apparently you don't think he's worthy of $28 million. That's all it's going to take. And what all these other receivers are wanting 35. You got to figure it out. You got to put the right players on the field because apparently you're saying that that Brandon Ayuk is dispensable, meaning he's easily replaced. You're going to find that out. You're going to have to figure that out. And especially with the quarterback who came out in the offseason saying he wants to be dominant. He wants to be like Tom Brady. I think the comparison is much closer to Peyton Manning personally, but you had a quarterback saying that he wants to do that. You're the one who's going to have to call the plays for that. So for me, it's going to be Kyle Shanahan because this offense, I don't know what it's going to look like this year. And you're a guy that makes everybody. So figure it out.
Well, I have two coaches. One I won't spend much time on because I have on this show a few times outlined my opinion on this coach. The first coach needs to figure it out is Dan Campbell. Okay.
Yeah.
Just because it's fourth down doesn't mean you have to go for it. So that's all I'll say with that. But the coach who I really want to spend the most time on is not even a head coach. It is an offensive coordinator. One for the Buffalo Bills, Joe Brady. He has a relatively tough job, not because he doesn't have the pieces requisite for a good offense, but because he is going to have to shift Josh Allen's philosophy of football entirely this season. Josh Allen wants to throw the ball down the field 50 times a game, with an average in-air distance of 25 yards. I mean, that dude has a cannon of an arm, and he wants to show it. Similarly to Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes had to go through a time of learning how to take checkdowns. This offense for the Buffalo Bills can be extremely effective. First of all, you have Josh Allen, who, aside from throwing the ball, running the ball is very effective. Throwing the ball is very effective as well. He has a good running back in James Cook with a good offensive line. They picked up Connor McGovern, which I get it from our end. He wasn't great for us. But it seems like as soon as he left us, he got better and better and better to where he's now one of probably a top 10 center in this league. So you're going to have a good run game. And then you look at the wide receiver room and you say Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Curtis Samuel. Bunch of mid, right? Shakir might be able to show you something. But I think if he does show you something, it's because of the fact that he's the number one option, not because he's a number one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you look at their tight end room. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. Two better than average tight ends with a good running game and a good offensive line. That can be an effective offense.
Yeah.
I think that this is the potential for Josh Allen to get an MVP has never been higher than this year. I think the potential for Josh Allen to get the haters to quit talking is higher than it's ever been this year. But I think it's going to have to look differently. It's not going to be throwing the ball down to Stephon Diggs and then, hitting, other receivers. And it's going to look like smart, effective football. But for a quarterback who's led the league in turnovers, for a quarterback that's led the league in turnovers every season since he's been in the league, that might be the best thing for him. When Joe Brady was given the reins at the end of last year, their offense did a lot better. Why? Because they ran the ball more.
Yeah.
They took checkdowns more. So I think that the offense of Buffalo could be better than it was last year.
Yeah.
Maybe not put up as much points, but be a better offense, an offense that takes longer drives, an offense that's more efficient with the ball. It's just going to have to take Joe Brady convincing Josh Allen and casting that vision to him. But if he does that well, if he can figure that out, I think the Bills are going to be formidable this year.
Yeah. Let me clarify one thing before, because I got to hop off Office Olympics happening right now. when I was making my Brock Purdy, Peyton Manning similarity,
Yeah, please speak to that.
I felt this as soon as his quote came out, and Nick Wright affirmed it when he brought it up on First Things First. You know, whenever Peyton Manning would be in a game and they would be up by 4 at the start of the fourth quarter, and then in the middle of the fourth quarter, they would be up by 18. That's essentially what Brock Purdy said he wants to do this season. That's the step he wants to take. And so he said Tom Brady, but it was I attribute that kind of next level more to Peyton than Tom. So that's what I meant by that. And so I thought of that when he said that quote, and then Nick Wright affirmed that right after I thought that. So that's where that's coming from.
Yeah, so the comparison isn't that he's more like Peyton Manning. It's the fact that what he's saying,
what he wants to do
more
in
like
year
Peyton
3
Manning.
is
Yeah.
be more like Peyton Manning versus Tom.
Well, I'll be able to sleep at night now, because before,
Yeah, it was a little scary.
I was
like-
horrified of the words that came out of your mouth.
It's
No.
like
And I'm
Brock
not
Purdy and Joe
I'm not saying
Montana.
I think that's what he was saying. That's what
Yeah.
Brock was saying.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
Brock has become delusional, so that might be a different segment for a different
might be.
show.
that might be.
Maybe Brock should have been on Figure It Out.
Well, I was gonna put him on Figure It Out, but then Savage said, "This is a guy we pay millions and millions of dollars," and then I was like, "He doesn't even make $1 million."
Right.
And then he said, "We got to stop making excuses." I don't think anybody's making any excuses for him. So, like in those two
Yeah.
fronts,
Sure.
he didn't qualify for this segment.
Yeah.
If he gets the bag this offseason, I think he's an excellent candidate.
That was gonna be a reason.
sure.
That
Yeah.
was gonna be a reason why I think there is pressure on him.
Yeah.
But not like excruciating figure it out pressure, but he is playing for what type of contract he's getting.
Yeah.
And so if I'm part of the 49ers organization and maybe a 49ers fan, part of me is hoping he has a mid-season. So that way you don't have to pay him as much. You can justify it and then go get more players, because he has proven when he has all the weapons around him, he can get you pretty close. And if he has a mid-level contract, you can afford to go get players here and there. And so that's probably the hope that the 49ers are having. Maybe that's why they're not signing Brandon Ayuk. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, all right, Daniel. Thanks for giving us your time and being on.
Go get the gold.
I look forward to hearing what the rest of this episode is like. The fact that you two have not done an episode together in a very long while, and with this NFC East discussion that's about to take place, Double Take fans, stay tuned, because that's going to be an amazing 50 minutes. Take care.
David and Steven, figure it out. Honestly.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, it's on us. Coach is right, guys.
I'll see y'all later.
It's on us. All right, see you, bro. All righty. Just to keep talking about, just last note on Brock Purdy. This is going to be an important year for him this upcoming season. If the team is not, if Daniel's correct and this team has a lot of injury concerns and the offense is not going to be where it's at, then this is the opportunity to where we get to see Brock Purdy and be like, okay, like your doubters and the people who are a little bit hesitant to give you all of this acclaim, this is kind of your opportunity to shut us up and to prove that, hey, I don't need all pros on this team. I just need fairly good players, good coaching, and I could elevate this team to have success. So I think this year is going to be very important for Brock Purdy in that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think honestly, I think the best thing for Niners fans is if Brandon Ayuk doesn't come back. Because if you pay Brock, like you were going to be in such a – I think they're planning – I don't think they're not paying Ayuk because they don't think he's worth it.
Right.
I think they're preparing for what they're about to pay Brock.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're paying Brock that much and you're paying McCaffrey and you're paying all of these guys, then you weren't going to be able to keep Ayuk around anyways. I think they would love to keep Ayuk at a more reasonable number for their specific cap. But I think Ayuk is also right in saying I'm worth way more than what you're wanting to give me. But yeah, I mean, you look at that Niners thing, is their window fastly closing? because if you're going to commit big money to Purdy, Trent Williams is getting older.
Yeah.
All of their superstars have an injury history, and they'll have a good defense. That defense will be good to go for a long time. But offensively, if the skeptics of Brock Purdy are correct, that he's not that guy, that there's 30 quarterbacks in the league who could do close to the same job as Purdy can for a whole lot less money, and you pay him that big money, all of the stars go away. That window might be starting to close. It might start looking a lot like, the Browns. Great defense, but a struggling offense.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Purdy could – and he's young, ish. He had a lot of time in college. Typically, quarterbacks who stay all the time in college don't get much better than where they are initially. But we'll see. We'll have to see, man. I think you had a good job of putting Shanahan in the figure it out segment. So,
yeah. I mean, it's about time. I mean, at some point you got to win it, right?
Yeah.
You can't just keep getting there. You got to win it.
Right.
I think he's at that point. But now let's move into the NFL preseason. The first week of the preseason happened over the weekend. We had a couple of performances to discuss across the NFL. So first, let's talk about the 6 rookies that were taken in the first round of the draft as they made their debut. So we had Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix Jr. Savage, of these 6 debuts, which one gave you the most hope for their future?
I would say it's pretty easily. I mean, in terms of highest potential ceiling, not like how they did versus what we thought of them going into it. I think the answer has to be Caleb. I mean, Caleb looked really good.
Yeah.
Caleb is going to be in a really good system. He is going to be around really good weapons, So I think in terms of who's going to have the best rookie year? I mean, going into the season, I said Jaden was the better player. And I think he can be the better player. But right now, I would say Caleb's taken that lead in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just have to see. In terms of who outperformed their expectation the most, I would say it's Bo Nix.
That was
Bo Nix looked really good. But that's also, I think that's more Sean Payton than it is Bo Nix.
Sure.
Of just a pack-and-play system, color by numbers, ABCs, offense, just throw it to this guy. On this play, you throw it to this guy. Super simple concepts and just easy to understand, which is what I think you probably need with a guy like Bo Nix. Mm-hmm. He can accurately deliver the football. It's almost like Brock Purdy of the AFC in a way of what his potential can be there. A great offensive coach, a good offensive scheme, and a quarterback who just won't mess it up.
Yeah. I'm going to go Bo Nix here. I was impressed with Caleb, seeing how he played. He made a throw on a 3rd down and long. Mm-hmm. That was phenomenal.
A good scramble.
Yeah, and then using his legs on some plays too. I mean, you can tell that he has that kind of it factor. I think something that was missing from Justin Fields just a little bit in his first year. But I was really impressed with Bo Nix, and I do have to agree with you on your Sean Payton point, because this game, that first preseason game with Bo Nix, had me changing my mind about Sean Payton. I kind of have fell off the bandwagon for Sean Payton just because I thought the situation with Russ, I thought that was on him. But clearly, even after seeing this first game with Bo Nix, Sean Payton knew what he was doing. It wasn't the fact that Russell Wilson wasn't a good quarterback or even just above average, but Sean Payton knew what he needed for the system. And so he went and he got Bo Nix. Bo Nix looked really, really good. And so I think it really helped put my mind at ease on Sean Payton and be like, okay, you deserve a little bit more credit, because Bo Nix looked absolutely sensational in that game. He looked really, really good. Drake May didn't really get a lot of playing time really in this, so it's kind of hard to comment on him. And then whatever we would say about J.J. McCarthy is kind of up in the air. I thought he played well, but with his injury, with his meniscus, you really can't say much. I thought Michael Penix Jr. played good. Played well.
He's not going to be the starter, but if you're Atlanta, I don't know if you feel a little bit better about using your first round pick on another quarterback. I don't think he did anything to ease your mind on that, but at least he doesn't look like Zach Wilson or somebody like that you just wasted your first round. But I thought Zach Wilson, he played. Sean Payton made him look pretty good too, if we're going to be honest. So, but I think the quarterback that's not on our list, and we talked about this a little bit in that first preseason game, I liked what I saw from Joe Milton for New England. He was a late round draft pick for New England out of Tennessee. I'm not saying he's going to be a starter. I'm not saying that he's better than Drake May. All I'm saying is that Joe Milton has the potential to be a developmental quarterback for New England that they can trade away to another team that might need a bridge quarterback. I think he looked really, really good. That's all I'm going to say, Savage. That's all I'm going to say. Not saying he's a Hall of Famer. Not saying he's a top 10 quarterback. I'm just saying I was impressed.
We're doing Joe Milton segments. This is
It's
crazy.
not a segment. I just mentioned his name. His name.
All right, cool. Yeah.
But
maybe the highlight of Joe Milton's career.
It probably will be. I'm not saying that it probably won't be, because he could come out this week and look like absolute trash. He could. Yeah. So, but next one that we're going to talk about is Trey Lance, because he made his Cowboys debut in the preseason against the Rams. That defense, 4 picks. Trey Lance only scored 9 points total. Savage, what are your takeaways from his performance and also his future with the Cowboys and maybe in the NFL?
My takeaway is that the second best quarterback on our team is Cooper Rush. Trey Lance, he just looked like a bunch of mid, man. If the defense sets you up that many times, and you only walk away with a couple field goals, I feel like I'm watching Dak in a big pressure game, you know? And so, I don't feel very optimistic about Trey Lance. I've always kind of said, maybe we'll see what we have in Trey Lance and maybe he can be worth something. But I would say the Trey Lance experience, we can give him the rest of the preseason. But if he doesn't show anything, let's just get rid of him, and open up a roster spot and, go find the best rugby player in college and go give him a contract and just see what can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, Trey, I guess not a surprise here. You could tell that he was uncomfortable to start off the game. Even I would say until the last drive of the fourth quarter, he showed flashes of his athletic ability, but no real feel for the quarterback position. I think his college career was very much overblown. I mean, because he had that 1 year where he didn't throw any interceptions. He threw like 22 touchdowns, and he ran for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns as well. And people said, "Oh man, look at the potential." I mean, he's a complete athlete. I mean, he was a developmental pick even for San Francisco, and it just showed that it clearly could not work. He just doesn't seem to be able to go past his first read. If his first read's there, he hits it. If not, he's going to scramble. He's going to run out of the pocket. And in some cases, not even that, he'll kind of freeze. And then on some of the easy throws, I mean, there was a 4th down literally on his first drive. He drove the ball down the field, made some good plays. But on that 4th and goal, everyone's saying that it's a bad call by McCarthy. It's absolutely not. It's the preseason. You want to see what you have in this quarterback. And the receiver beats his man in the corner.
Yeah.
You throw that ball with no hesitation, that's a touchdown. If Dak's in that position, that's a touchdown. And Trey Lance just sails. He passed the ball one too many times, throws the ball late, goes out of bounds. It's just those kinds of plays that I saw a lot in this first preseason game. But on that last drive, he kind of came to life a little bit, showed some good things, and then our receivers dropped a lot of passes. The only reason why I mentioned that is because I think this game hopefully, probably doesn't, but hopefully opens the eyes of Jerry Jones and be like, "Hey, CD, what are you waiting for? Get that deal done. We don't have any receivers. that are going to be able to catch that ball. Just Jalen Brooks looked good, but other than that, that's it. Really nothing else. You need CeeDee Lamb because these receivers cannot catch a pass.
I think we are fundamentally opposed in our views of a lot of things in football.
Probably.
One of them, though, that I'm starting to learn is our view of preseason football. I believe preseason football tells you approximately nothing in terms of how should we evaluate receiver talent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if our fourth string receiver is better than their third string secondary. You know, like Jalen Brooks. Okay, he looked good for a little bit in a preseason game. Go line him up against Jalen Ramsey. We want to talk about Jalen Brooks then, you know, and then like, yeah, I don't know. I think for young rookies who you're expecting to be big time players, it's important for them developmentally to get reps against people who aren't college players. Sure.
Yeah.
But at the same point, like that doesn't mean they're going to pan out once the regular season starts. Personally, one of the biggest things that I don't like doing is watching preseason football. I will do it for the podcast, but I won't enjoy it. And because it's just, who cares? Like Cowboy fans who get into arguments over preseason games, what are we doing? What are we doing? We lost 13.
Have you seen those?
No, but I mean, you're saying like, you know, there's some people who are saying that was a bad call by McCarthy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Why are we talking about if it's a bad, like, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It doesn't. Until we have week 1 of the regular season, that's when we should start complaining about calls. But who's complaining about a call in a preseason game? Like, go do a chore. I don't know. Get up off of your couch caring that much about preseason. Preseason tells you next to nothing. You know, unless if you have a Caleb, a Jaden, a JJ, Michael, one of those guys, a young quarterback, let's give him some reps. Let's see him in motion. Outside of that, man, like, you think Jalen Brooks gets 10 targets this season?
He should. He should. The reason why, and usually I'm with you, like preseason really doesn't tell me anything, but the play that Jalen Brooks made in his one series, because once he made that play, he came out. He was not in for the rest of the game because I think they knew this guy is solid, because it was an underthrow by Cooper Rush that Jalen kind of had to come back to and had to make a play on it, and he made it. And even he showed the times that he got opportunities last year, I thought he played well in the regular season. So I think in that play, I just felt better about Jalen Brooks being our fourth guy. Because in years past, even our fourth guy, Noah Brown, loves to tip the ball up to defenders. Yeah. So I just felt solid about him. But the reason why I bring up receivers and dropping, because I'm like Savage, these weren't even difficult catches to make. I mean, this is a guy who literally ran an inside hitch route wide open, dropped it 2 times in a row, and just like pay CD, because I don't want to see this in the regular season at all.
Absolutely. I'm with you. We need to get that deal done.
Yeah. But heading into that conversation, we are going to be breaking down the NFC East and the NFC West. And we're going to start with the East, with the Cowboys, the Giants, Eagles, and Commanders. Savage, answer me these 2 questions. Who's going to win the division and what's the standings looking like? And then 2, who's on the hot seat?
Okay, so my official prediction for what the NFC East standings are going to be is 4th place, the Giants, 3rd place, Commanders, 2nd place, Cowboys, 1st place, Eagles. I don't think Cowboys fans should be up in arms on this. We haven't had a repeat division winner in forever. I don't believe the Eagles are so much better than us, as I just believe the safe bet is going that there's not going to be a repeat winner. I think the NFC East, this is one of the weaker years in recent history for the NFC East. I don't believe any team from the NFC East is making the conference finals. I would be shocked if us or Philly make it out of the first, or make it like if it's a competitive game in the third quarter of round 2, I would be shocked for either of the two teams. So winning the NFC East this year doesn't mean that much. But I think the Giants aren't going to be as good as the Commanders, just because I think you bring in a new coach, you bring in a new quarterback. I think that is going to be better than Daniel Jones. I think Jaden Daniels already is probably better than Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones has kind of showed us who he is. And I don't really like their backup quarterback option in New York, right? I mean,
yeah, Drew Lock.
Right.
He did not look good either.
And he's also never looked good in his career. So I like Malik Neighbors. I think that's a good addition.
Yeah.
I think Jalen Hyatt has potential, but I just don't think wide receivers are as good as the one who can get them the ball. And
Correct.
I just have very little faith in Daniel Jones. So that's my prediction. I would say the hot seats in the East are, funny enough, the head coaches of the top two teams. You know, like I think Sirianni's in a hot seat if he can't figure it out with the relationship between him and Hurts, because they're not going to move off of Hurts.
No, they're not.
And so if he can't figure out how to make Hurts be on his side, I could see a world where he's gone. Also, no one believes that the Eagles have had any success because of Sirianni. You know, like he's not seen to be a catalyst for improvement. You know, in fact, he oftentimes seems to be the reason why they get held back some is because of decisions he's made. And then Mike McCarthy's on the hot seat because he doesn't have a contract. So literally by definition, he is on a hot seat that if he doesn't produce this year, he needs to be gone. I think the only way Mike McCarthy comes back is if we're the NFC champions. And I don't see a world in which that happens. I think he's basically gone. I think Jerry is already starting to think through who his next head coach is going to be. I think he's potentially thinking through a whole new way to rebuild the system. I know that you had on the show a couple weeks ago talking about, you know, your reason for why you don't think a rebuild would work because you don't think Jerry Jones has a vision for it. I would agree with that. I don't think that a rebuild would work, but I do believe a rebuild would be attempted.
No, for sure. Yeah.
And which is all the reason why I said at the beginning of the show, I just don't feel any optimism at all about where the Cowboys are at. With that, though, the East is bad enough to where I think that we'll still get second.
Yeah. Yeah. Not really a lot to argue with you about. I think I feel the exact same way. And I'm pretty sure Daniel would say the exact same thing. I have the Eagles winning the division not necessarily because I think they're that much better than us, but because it's just how the East works. It just we never have a repeating champion. I guess my question to you is, you're very high on Jaden Daniels. I would say. I mean, you came out saying that he's probably the most pro ready of or you probably said Drake May was probably the most pro ready, but in terms of having success in the NFL, your money was on Jaden Daniels just purely from a talent perspective. Do you think that with all the additions that they made, clearly none of them were big, outstanding, huge swings and home runs. But with this kind of Dan Quinn being the head coach, instilling a defense, and with the talent of Jaden Daniels, where do you think what is the ceiling for Washington? What could they get second place, or do you think that's firmly with Dallas?
No, they won't get second. I would say the ceiling for how good the Commanders can be this year is probably like a 7 and 9.
Okay.
I think best case scenario, everything works out great, because you got to keep in mind, like, I get that Jaden wasn't the first overall pick, but when you talk about quarterbacks who go early in the first round, outside of Caleb Williams, who we've already outlaid, is walking into a rare situation for a first overall pick.
Yeah.
Usually the reason that they're taken so high is because their team sucks, right? And the Commanders suck. I mean, they were awful the last several years. And so they had this high pick. They went to go get a quarterback. They bring in a new coach, a lot of new players. So there's going to be some initial growing pains. But I do think that Jaden is good enough, and the players who they've brought in, basically the rejects of the Cowboys, you know, are good enough to get you around 7 wins. Because I just think a lot of they get to play the Giants twice, so that's to their optimum ceiling. That's almost a third of your wins right there already baked in.
Yeah.
I
think they'll beat Philly once too. They always play Philly tough.
Right.
Because they did last year and they had Sam Howell.
Yeah. And so I think that they will be a team. They will be a team that when we see them on our schedule, we won't just think, well, I could probably go do something else, and just kind of catch the recap later. Like, it's going to be a game that you have to watch. But I don't think they're in any real place to make a move at second in the East.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the hot seats, I think the coaches are really good, but I also, because I watched Hard Knocks, I think the GM for the Giants is on the hot seat. Because you let Saquon go to Philly. If Saquon has a fantastic year and is a part of Philly possibly not just winning the division, but dominating you in your matchups, because you made the decision to pay Daniel Jones and to let Saquon walk. Because essentially what they did is you're like, hey, we don't even want to try and offer you a contract. Go test the market and then come back to us and we can see if we can match it. That's not something you want to do for your franchise player at all. And so they have to have a good season this year, but we already know this is a 4th place team. So I think the general manager of the Giants is going to be gone at the end of the year, and he's going to be, because I believe in Brian Daboll as a coach. He made Daniel Jones look somewhat competent in his first year there, but there's only so much you can do with this roster. And so I'd say that the Giants GM is definitely on the hot seat. I think McCarthy is, but there's a little bit of just resignation of just, you're going to be gone at the end of this year. It's kind of your last hurrah. See if you can make something happen. I would even say an NFC championship appearance would be good enough, maybe. But like you said, I don't even think that's going to even happen. The NFC East, you're right. There's nothing there. You're not potentially seeing the NFC East champion coming out of this division at all. So moving on to the NFC West, it looks like we figured out how to get through the NFC East without any difficulty. But as we get to the NFC West, we have Arizona, we have the Rams, the Niners, and Seattle. I have obviously the 49ers coming out of this division. You have Kyle Shanahan. You have Brock Purdy. You have this offense, this defense, NFC champions last year. Not a lot of big moves. And this is a team that should win the division. They should. It probably won't be as easy as before because I think the Rams are on the up and up. I think they're getting better as well. And they play San Francisco very well. But this should be San Francisco's division to lose. They should get first place. Then I have the Rams. The 3 and 4 spot, we could probably talk about this a little bit more. I don't have a real thought either way. I am interested in what Kyler Murray can do now that he's healthy. But we know what his history is late in the season, is that he'll get hurt. So I'm not 100% confident in what's going to happen there. So I'm going to put Seattle at 3rd. I think McDonald as the head coach, he's going to instill this defense. They're going to get back. I'm not saying they'll be the Legion of Boom, but they're going to be a force to be reckoned with defensively here pretty soon. And then Geno Smith, I really don't have a thought on him, but they have receivers. They have Metcalf. They have Lockett. They have
JSN.
Yeah, JSN. And then I love Kenneth Walker. They just need to go ahead and make him the starting full-time running back because he is explosive. I think this offense can be really good. So I just have less question marks about Seattle than I do about Arizona. And then, like I said, on my hot seat, is going to be Kyle Shanahan. You have to get it done. Arizona, I don't think the coach there, Gannon's not on the hot seat. McDonald's not on the hot seat. Sean McVay, he's locked in for life. But Kyle, in terms of your I guess there's no coach is on the hot seat in this division. But the way that we view them, especially for Kyle Shanahan, what happens in this division, it's going to matter.
Yeah. I think how you said it was right. I think any other idea of how that division is going to play out is confusing to me. To me, this feels as easy to predict as the NFC East does.
Yeah.
Clearly, the Niners are going to win the division. The Rams might make a push. It might be like halfway through the year, and we're like, man, do the Rams have a chance to win this thing? But I don't think they will. I think they'll get second. And then the Hawks are significantly better than the Cardinals. And I really don't think there's any reason to talk about the Hawks or the Cardinals either, just because.
Not really.
I mean, yeah, I think it's pretty open shut case, man. And I don't even think there's a lot of discussion points between 1 and 2 either. I mean, I think they're pretty locked in place, and we'll see, come the playoff bracket and all that stuff, how it all unfolds. I would feel differently about the potential of the Hawks if they got an offensive coach, because I think an offensive coach can make more of an immediate impact than a defensive coach, but that didn't happen. So,
yeah, is there a team, because you haven't been with us on the show as we went through the AFC and for the majority of the NFC, is there a team on either side that you're looking at and you said, hey, this could be a dark horse team that can make some noise and could sneak into the playoffs?
I don't think you consider Chicago a dark horse team anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking through teams in the AFC, I think my division winners there would be probably, as much as I want to say, if the Dolphins don't win their division, there's some real problems happening there. I mean, no, I really think this, the only thing that could potentially be interesting is Harbaugh's influence on the Chargers. But even that, I think you're talking about they make the playoffs and might win a game, but certainly not overtaking the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So I think right now, like the power players in the league are kind of set. And it doesn't seem like there's a good, like if you're going to tier list teams, it feels like you have pretty clear S tier teams, kind of an A class, but then like there's no B tier teams.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it just goes straight to C and D. So there's not really a whole lot of, keep your eyes out on this team. I also don't really think that team exists in the league. Because we kind of we know the Packers are going to be pretty good. We know that I don't really expect the Vikings to do anything special. We know the Lions are going to be good. The NFC South, we can just completely disregard that entire division. You start looking around the league and it's just like, no, the same teams that were basically pretty dominant last year are probably going to be pretty dominant this year. I don't think that the Pittsburgh Steelers, their quarterback carousel is going to lead to anything that intriguing. I think the NFC North is going to come down to, does Joe Burrow stay healthy? If they do, there'll be a race for the 1 seed in the North. If not, Ravens will win. I don't expect the Browns to be that good of a team this year. So, it just kind of seems pretty bleh. I don't think anyone would consider the Texans a dark horse team.
No.
Because the Texans kind of announced themselves last year. So, if I had to say somebody, I don't even know who I would say. because I don't want to say something stupid that's going to get me viral on TikTok for 4 hours.
I think you already did. I think your first segment probably will get some clicks.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
My Olympics takes, I think, will go. I think the nation agrees with me on a lot of the things I said about the Olympics.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll probably just be LeBron haters will have stuff to say.
I'm always ready for those guys.
Yeah, I know you are. But really quick before we leave, there were some contracts that went down with quarterbacks. Jordan Love got a new deal. Tua got a new deal. Jared Goff got a deal. Any thoughts about those deals at all? And also, since you also mentioned Deshaun Watson and his contract, if he doesn't live up and doesn't produce this season, does Cleveland move off of him after the year's done?
Cleveland doesn't seem like a team that has direction, so I don't think they would move off of him. Yeah, congrats on the guys for getting paid. I think most of those deals are well earned. The one deal that I would have pause about is the Tua deal, just because that's a lot of money for someone who doesn't seem to be able to play in the cold or potentially stay healthy to the point to where he can play in the cold. You know, like if he stays around, it's like he usually doesn't make it to that point in the season. And if he does, he's not very good in it. And if you were an NFC team, that wouldn't be a huge concern. But the fact that you're in the AFC with so many cold weather stadiums, you know, that's just it's concerning. With the same point, you could not pay him, and that's kind of what the market is right now. So, unless if you were ready to enter into a complete rebuild, but I think Goff's deal was a little rich. I don't feel like Goff is the main story there in Detroit. I think they're an Amon-Ra St. Brown deal away from not being a very good team. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us here on Double Take, our final episode of a football podcast. Thank you so much for joining us and on this entire series. If you've been here since the beginning, since day one, we're excited to kick off Double Take, a sports podcast. Savage already gave you a little bit of a sneak peek of that with his segment earlier in the show. So if you have not already, make sure to subscribe to that channel. That link is going to be below in the description. And also share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your football buddies that you have, because what we're about to do and the journey we're about to embark on is going to be amazing with brand new segments like Figure It Out that we did today, Daniel's segment, and then also my segment, which is very similar to a segment on First Things First, but with a little bit of a twist. But more details on that coming soon. But for Savage and for Daniel, this is David. And until next season on our new show, God bless.